And so the first three chapters are, three plus chapters of the book of Numbers are counting all the people. It's just lots of names. And then we get to chapter 4, which is where I'm going to start. And we're in a subset. Anybody a mathematician or a census counter in here? Anybody worked with the census? No? Well, it's called the census. So we're counting the people. They're counting the Levites. The Levites were the group of Israelites who did not participate in the golden calf. They're the only ones who don't have to repent for the golden calf. And they're separating the Levites into smaller groups and giving each of those groups a job. So the group that I'm going to read about tonight is called the Kohathites. And the question is, who are these people? So this is a little bit like, well, it's not Jeopardy because you already have the answer. But we're trying to figure out who are the Kohathites. So this is the only passage that really talks about them in particular, but they have a very important role. So, V'yadaber Adonai el Moshe ve'el Aharon, God speaks to Moses and to Aaron, Lemor, saying the following. Naso et rosh b'nei kahot, you shall count the Kohathites, matoch b'nei Levi, the group of people among the Levites, lemishpachotam, lebeit avotam. You shall count them according to their father's house. So that's, you just count them you do it by their father's name. So far we don't know much. This part gets a little interesting. Mi ben shloshim shana uma'ala va'ad ben chamishim. You shall only count the middle-aged folk. That's the translation is more 30-year-olds to 50-year-olds. I know. Yeah, I know. Well, that was middle-aged then. You were lucky if you lived to 60, they say in the Torah. So they're counting only the Kohathites who are, they're from the tribe of Levi, and they're between 30 and 50. Kol ba litzaveh la'asot malacha b'ohel moed. And they must be the ones who are able to do the work of the tent of meeting. The tent of meeting was sometimes we call it the tabernacle. Another name for it is the Mishkan, which we have our Mishkan. But it was the synagogue, the sanctuary that was traveling with the people. There was a lot of work to be done with the sanctuary. For those who are fans of the Ten Commandments, these are the people who carried the ark, right? So when you think about the Israelites trekking through the wilderness, it's the Kohathites who are carrying everything. Zot avodat b'nei kahot ba'ohel moed kodesh hakodeshim. This is the work, avodah, the service of the Kohathites. It is among the things of the tabernacle. They are to handle the kodesh hakodeshim, the most sacred things. Okay, so far we know they're middle-aged. We know they're Levites. We know they carry the important stuff. The next, almost the entire column is details about how to take apart the tabernacle. I'm skipping that part. And going to a line that's unique in the Torah, which says the following. V'yadaber Adonai el Moshe ve'el Aharon. God says again, as if starting a new conversation, to Moses and to Aaron, Lemor, saying the following. El hakrito et shevet mishpachot hakahati matoch haleviim. You shall not separate, the word's important, hakrito is, you shall not allow this group to be separated. But there's something called the karet laws. There were 36 sins that you could do that would cause you to essentially be exiled from the community, and that would be called karet, to be separated out. So God seems to warn Moses and Aaron that they have to pay special attention for this particular group. Nobody else gets this line. That they are not to be separated out, you can't allow them to do anything that would separate them out from the Levites. Ve'et asulahem v'hayu lo yamato, because we do not want these people to not be with us any longer. So I'm going to stop there for a second. We're going to bless the end of Torah, and then we'll get more into it.
ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam nata v'chotenu baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Thank you. So, who are the Kohathites, other than the 30 to 50-year-olds who can carry some stuff? I think of them as people who are not, we don't want, what God tells us, what the Torah tells us is these are people who we can't lose them. Or a different way of saying it is, we can't lose them because they have to carry what's most important to us. I think of it as they have to be strong enough to carry, but mature enough, because they have to be 30 to 50, which we never really know why. 30, by biblical standards, would be old, if we're honest. So they have to be mature enough, but they have to be strong enough to carry some things. So I want to start by sharing a story that was told by Dave Barry, the well-known author. He tells a story of Roger and Elaine. I didn't think Elaine was going to be here tonight, but it's not about this Elaine. So he tells the following story. Roger and Elaine are driving home from a lovely dinner date together. Sitting in the passenger seat, Elaine is reflecting on their relationship. Roger, she says, do you realize that as of tonight, we've been seeing each other for exactly 6 months? Roger is silent for a little too long, and Elaine starts to think, I wonder if it bothers him that I said that. Maybe he's been feeling confined by our relationship. Maybe he thinks I'm too clingy. Meanwhile, Roger is thinking to himself, 6 months, that would have been last February, which is right after I had the car at the dealer's, which means I'm way overdue for my oil change. In the 15 seconds of silence that's filled with both their minds racing in different directions, Elaine now starts to look at Roger's face, and he looks really upset. Meanwhile, Roger is now thinking about the transmission because he knows his car is not shifting correctly, and he's wondering how long his car is going to have to be in the shop. She keeps looking at his face, now fully convinced that Roger is mad at her, and a tear starts to roll down her cheek. Roger notices, and he's confused. He has no idea what upset her, but he gets very anxious. He still hasn't said anything. So she speaks up. I think we need some time apart. Roger, feeling that he has to be careful with what he takes as a moment, so he takes a moment to think, doesn't want to upset her anymore, he's not sure what's going on, so he simply says, okay. The definition of emotional maturity is the ability for a person to understand and manage their emotions, to understand and to manage them. What I wish for Roger and Elaine is that they had those skills. When I think about why the Kohathites were trusted to carry the ark, I wonder if what made them special was that they were both physically and emotionally capable of carrying what was important for the community. As someone who, according to this week's Torah portion, is happily middle-aged, I can attest that emotional maturity does not simply arrive at age 30, just as it does not depart at age 50. That, in fact, you can be a 5-year-old and very mature, and you can be a 55-year-old and be no more mature than your grandchild. But I do believe that much of what is described as emotional maturity, we weren't looking at anywhere in particular. I do believe that much of what is described as emotional maturity comes from life experience. According to the School of Life organization, we can be 55 on the outside, 4 on the inside, vice versa. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, when someone who we depend on emotionally lets us down, how do we react? Here's the test that they say to give yourself. If we react with emotional immaturity, we may do one of the following things. We may sulk. Or, put another way, we get upset, but we refuse to say anything about it. That's Elaine in the car. We may get furious, number 2, defined as disproportionately angry in order to show our power, to hold our place in the relationship when we feel that we've become too small. 3, we become cold, refusing to admit that what the person has done bothers us. That was Roger in the car. So what's the test if you have emotional maturity? Rather than staying quiet, you have the capacity to explain why you're upset. Rather than getting angry, you have the capacity to stay calm. It's sometimes described as giving people the benefit of the doubt instead of thinking that people are out to get you. To try, as my professor said in graduate school, quoting Stephen Covey, and also a well-known author, to seek to understand others before you seek to be understood yourself. And in lieu of being cold and pretending that we're not hurt by what somebody has done that actually did hurt us, emotional maturity is defined as having the ability to say that you are hurt, that you need help. It's the capacity to be vulnerable in front of someone whom you care about but whom has hurt you. So now let's imagine that among the Israelites there was a group of people who were chosen to carry the values of the Jewish people, the commandments that God had given at Sinai, to hold on to the most important things that were, if not literally, at least symbolically, the sign of their values. They had to be physically strong because it was heavy and they had to march through the wilderness. But more importantly, they had to be mature, emotionally mature people. Because when we are not, we suffer the consequences of karet, of separating from each other, of not being able to live with each other, of not realizing that, in fact, this is a relationship we want to keep going, but we split up because we didn't know how to discuss it. This was a group of people that had to stay together, perhaps because they were the glue that kept everyone together, because they knew how to talk about hard things, because they knew how to be vulnerable, because they wouldn't let something go unsaid, and because they were committed. May we have more days when we find ourselves walking the path of these ancient ancestors of ours. More days like them than we do driving the car quietly like Roger and Elaine. May our maturity be one of our greatest strengths as individuals and as a people. And most importantly, may it keep us together, holding up what is most important to us, keeping us focused on the people in our lives more than the cars, more than the schedules, more than the busyness of life. May we find our ways to be our most mature selves. Shabbat Shalom. With our Torah out and the story before us, we take a moment to offer our prayers for all of those who are suffering, those whom we know in our lives and those whom we don't. We'll invite you to share the names of anybody you'd like in the midst of our prayer. Page 253.